Well, welcome everyone. Josh, great to see you, and I'm looking forward to our conversation about strategic negotiation and really what is the missing piece of the puzzle. For anyone watching, my name is Gary Furlong. I'm a longtime mediator and negotiation trainer, as well as negotiating facilitator. Done a lot of work in the negotiation field, and mediation, of course, is assisted negotiation, and co-author with Josh of Strategic Negotiation, Building Organizational Excellence. Josh?
Yeah, Gary, thanks. Great as always to have a conversation with you. So I am Josh Gordon. I'm faculty at the University of Oregon, where I teach negotiation and things around sports and sports law as well. Gary and I have had a lot of conversations in this space because we share a passion here.
Yeah. So as we've talked many times, Josh, there is this giant missing piece of the puzzle in negotiation. Now, what we wanted to do today is just have a conversation to help everyone understand why we say there's this giant missing piece of the puzzle that sinks a lot of negotiation. You know, Josh, there are probably 1,000 books out there on negotiation, and we're talking about everything from You Can Negotiate Anything to Never Split the Difference to Negotiating Genius to The Art of Persuasion. And it goes on and on and on. And if you read any one of those books, and between you and I, we've probably read most of them, every single one of them focuses on an individual. How does an individual get to be a good, great, or brilliant negotiator? And that's not even talking about negotiation styles that an individual can have. Like, are they a cooperative, a collaborative, a hardball, an aggressive negotiator? But again, even talking about styles focuses this exclusively almost on the individual. And that's where the giant missing piece of the puzzle fits in.
Yeah, I think if you think about the role of pop culture, that it also feeds into this, it makes for great drama to
Yeah.
rely heavily on an individual. It looks great on TV, it looks great in the movies. You've got these very high pressure hostage negotiations. Some of the books are written by these people, honestly. And the things we're talking about don't make for great theater, but they sure do make for a lot different outcome than we're talking about.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen the movie The Negotiator, Samuel L. Jackson and Kevin Spacey, and it's all about the two of them are hostage negotiators. They're brilliant negotiators, and but it comes down again to that individual. Where is the organization? And we like to say, is your organization negotiation competent or not? So talk a bit about organizational competence around negotiation, Josh.
Yeah, so once we move beyond the idea that it's just an individual skill set, and we start thinking about what are the key practices and habits and cultural elements that an organization can do to support individuals so that any individual can thrive in that organization and have really good negotiation processes and really effective outcomes. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about, where someone can come out of it, yes, have individual skill set, but be able to apply it. So often I think you and I get the same comment at the end of a training saying, well, this is all great and well and good, but it won't work on Monday.
Yeah. Won't work where I work. And
Yeah.
but that speaks to, it means my organization is different than best practices around negotiation, for example, right? So just, probably the one that we talk about the most, Josh, or the starting point is strategy. What is the organization's overarching strategy? Because every negotiation takes place within that context, doesn't it?
Yeah. So a classic, if part of your organizational strategy is to have really durable, long-lasting relationships with your key partners, that makes a lot of sense. Now the question becomes, do you have alignment with that overall strategy and what your negotiation practices and policies and procedures and all the things that a culture around negotiation do? Or are you creating transactional moments that are actually eroding the ability to have these strategically important long-term relationships?
Yeah, probably the single biggest direction or directive that I hear negotiators get from their organization is get the best deal possible. Now tell me, what the heck does that mean?
Yeah,
What does the best deal mean?
we probably have 100 different definitions of what
Yeah.
success is there. And how can you expect any organization to thrive when you're relying on the individual to come up with their own definition of success?
Yeah. So for example, if you're negotiating with a supplier, what is the most important thing? The obvious one that comes up is we'll get the best price. But price is probably in most cases one of the lower priorities, because if you are manage to beat the supplier up and they happen to need you at that point in time, so they give you a price that they're barely making money on, the minute that they have a better place to sell it to, guess who's first on the chopping block? Right? So all of a sudden, yeah, you got a great price and now you don't have product. And what's that do to? So are they a strategically important supplier? If they are, price should be probably second or third on the list, whereas as supply, maybe it's just in time delivery is one of the most important things, right? Because you're keeping your inventory costs down, et cetera. In collective bargaining, everyone will gravitate to wages and benefits. And of course, that's important. But what about working conditions, things like flexibility? Maybe it's scheduling flexibility actually is what the organization needs more than shaving 10 cents an hour off the wage from a cost perspective. So that's that strategic piece of negotiating that only the organization can actually fill in. And how have you seen it best sort of communicated or engaged with, Josh?
Well, one is to start by acknowledging that we can't thrive when we're in this kind of ad hocery. So when we're relying on individuals, we do get these momentary successes at times, but that ad hocery where we rely on individuals is really a volatile game to be playing. And so often what we see if you are in ad hocery is that any organizational attempt is really about paying a whole lot of money to train individuals.
Right.
And and what you and I constantly hear is, well, I want you to come in and do training. And we ask, well, have you done training before? Yeah, we did it a couple of years ago. How'd that go? Oh, the training was well received. Great.
Right.
And why aren't you going back to, well, nothing really changed. So we figure we try a different trainer. And they've done this for a decade plus. And so the question becomes, well, it's not that you keep finding bad trainers. They're probably excellent trainers, but you're training individuals, you're never solving the core issue, which is moving out of ad hocery into a much more repeatable place for the organization to thrive. So I think that's really what we're talking about when we're trying to understand some of these organizational negotiation capabilities.
Yeah, they really form the foundation of virtually guaranteeing either, we use the word success, but I'll say virtually guaranteeing good outcomes. The only way to do that if there is some consistency and competence on the part of the organization. So if we're going to do training, and training is important, it has to be within a context of how do we as an organization negotiate? What are our values? So if we are an organization that has an ethos, a set of values as being, for example, sustainable and building business partnerships, you can't send a negotiator to the table to beat the bejesus out of that other party, because it's antithetical to what the core values are, and it's going to erode that relationship. So again, what are the values? What's the strategy? And what is our corporate or organizational direction that we are going in right now? And the negotiators need to be, well on board with that.
Yeah, the good news is, as we both know, that this takes a lot of pressure off of the individuals because, a lot of times going back to our TV observation is individual negotiators, especially when operating in ad hocery, feel like they have to be magically effective at the table.
Yeah.
And when you take an organizational approach, much of the work you do is actually in preparation and try and do all that alignment behind the scenes to make sure that your organizational goals are being prepared for by the individuals who are going to be at the table. And you don't have to be particularly slick.
And so the approach we like to take is just with a simple negotiation assessment tool that looks at these different areas to get first and foremost a read on how are we doing now, where do we have gaps, and then we can start actually addressing them.
Yeah, and what it does set you up for it too, and because you and I are not saying training is not part of it. We are, of course, training's part of it, but training is a catalytic event. And so after you do that assessment, it allows you to do something quite customized to address exactly where we are in the moment and start building momentum for the organizational change and individual skills needed
Yeah.
to impact how you do all of this.
Yeah, and that's exactly the two broad components, the individual skills as they are aligned with the organizational sort of structures that we've put in place to build and support the negotiation process in the organization. And that's
Yeah,
really what strategic negotiation is about. It's building that strategy, that framework, so the individuals and the skill sets they have to be good negotiators can thrive.
let me tell a little story to hammer home
Yeah.
this concept. So years ago, MIT had an exhibit that was an interactive exhibit called King Tut's Tomb. And to get through this exhibit, it's kind of a predecessor to all these escape rooms that everyone likes to go do on vacation now. But you had to solve all kinds of fairly complex problems. And I was there with my two nephews who were teenagers at the time, and we were struggling throughout this entire exhibit and relying on others for the most part. It's pretty complex. And we got to the last in King Tut's tomb, and almost nobody solves this. But if you do, the tomb opens and it's this great theater at the end, right?
Yeah.
And I watched my nephew just playing with this completely randomly, just playing with the numbers. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, smoke, the tomb, King Tut rises from the tomb. Everyone gathers around my nephew and wants to know, how did he do it? Great success. How did he do it? He got lucky this one time. We could not have repeated that success. If we went back again and tried to even solve King Tut's tomb a second time, we would not have done it. And so too many folks are like my nephew. They celebrate these success and they forget all the fact that we got there by chance or by accident or by just a little fortune. And so what would be much better is if we actually learned all the underlying math and problem solving that was needed, we would have solved King Tut's tomb much better. And here I think it's the same thing. We're trying to create that infrastructure that really helps individuals thrive consistently.
Yeah, so the book is an excellent place to start. You can certainly follow it on LinkedIn. There's a regularly sort of some posts and some ideas for you on a regular basis on how to start thinking about this. But the idea of strategic negotiation, which is building not just the individual skill set, but the organizational competencies, is really how you build long-term success.
Hey, you want to tease our next one that we're doing after this as well?
Well, yeah, the next one we're really going to focus on is negotiation as a strategic asset. How do we start building that negotiation process as a strategic advantage in our organization? So that's where we're going next.
All right. Well, Gary, thank you so much for another wonderful conversation. I hope folks get a lot out of these, and thank you again.
Pleasure.